Hey you guys, welcome back to my channel. Today is day 6 of 7 in my palette week, and today we are going to be ranking my entire Huda Beauty palette collection. Now I did do a ranking my Huda palettes last year, so I'll have that video linked down below, but I have since accumulated a few more Huda palettes and I thought it would be interesting to do this video again just to see if maybe my preferences have changed on some of the way that I would rank these. I didn't go back and watch my previous ranking video to see like how I ranked them then because I didn't want to have any sort of bias going into this, so I didn't rewatch that video. So I'll be very curious after I film this to watch that and see how my ideas have changed or my preferences have changed, etc. So if you guys are interested in seeing how I would rank my 11 Huda Beauty palettes, then stay tuned. First, if you haven't already subscribed to my channel, I would love it if you would consider subscribing before you go. I do post videos 5 days a week, so if you have fun with me during this video, I would love if you hit that subscribe button before leaving today. But other than that, let's just go ahead and jump into today's palette week video. I am starting to feel better, you guys, but I still feel like I'm congested and a little bit out of breath, even though I haven't been running a marathon this morning, so apologies for that. Also, I feel like my foundation probably doesn't match my neck. My neck is truly see-through right now. I'm that white. I laugh with people at work all the time. Sometimes my pants, my ankles will show, and it's not even white skin, it's basically purple because I'm always freezing too. I swear I'm like a Viking, which is fitting because I live in Minnesota and hashtag Skol Vikings, but this literally has nothing to do with this video as per usual with my long rambly introduction. So I recently also ranked my Anastasia Beverly Hills palette this week. I will also have that video linked down below in just my palette week playlist in case you are interested in watching any more videos with a palette theme to them. But like I do in all rankings videos, which I feel like I've done a lot of rankings videos on my channel this year, but I freaking love rankings videos. I think they are so much fun to film. I'm going to be starting with my least favorite, moving all the way to my favorite, and I feel like this is probably pretty in line with where I ranked this last year. Now I have decluttered my Huda Amethyst Obsessions palette. That is the only palette in my Huda collection that I have decluttered. I just did not care for the formula. But coming in at the bottom, number 11, I have the Huda Emerald Obsessions palette. This is the only other Huda palette I own from the specific Gemstone line, and I just wasn't as impressed with the formula within these palettes as I am the normal, original 6 Huda Obsessions palettes. I just felt like the mattes weren't as easy to use, the shimmers were a little bit chunkier, and I just didn't love the formula. I've considered decluttering this one as well, but I've had just a huge place in my heart for green eyeshadow this year, so I just can't get myself to declutter this one just yet. But of all my Huda Beauty palettes currently in my collection, this would definitely be my least favorite. Number 9 and 10 are pretty neck and neck, but for number 10, I'm going to go with the Huda Gemstone Obsession palette. This is an all shimmer palette. Looks like this. Very beautiful with some really stunning shimmers in here. I think the quality on these is really nice. I just am never reaching into only an all shimmer palette, so that is why I'm ranking this one at number 10. I still love these shimmers, and I come into this palette quite a bit for lid toppers, etc., things like that. I'm still very happy to have this palette in my collection, but when I think about wearability and reaching into just one palette, which is typically my preference, I am always having to reach into this palette usually just for 1 or 2 shades as a lid topper. So that is why I am ranking this one at number 10. And then closely after that, number 9 is going to go to my Huda Electric Obsessions palette. And I really do love this palette. Do not get me wrong. This is a super nice, compact, easy to use 9-pan colorful eyeshadow palette. I just love the way that this palette was curated with the selections of mattes versus shimmers. The purple and blue shimmer in this palette, they are some of my favorite colorful shimmers in my collection. The mattes also performed so well. You get such high pigment payoff. Now you do have to be a little bit careful because the pigment payoff is so high. Sometimes it's a little bit harder to fix mistakes as you're using this, but For me, even though this is a higher pigment payoff palette, I find this to be less intimidating than other colorful palettes, and it could just be because it's a sleek 9-pan palette, but I have really enjoyed every time that I've reached into this, and even with my like lack of creativity when it comes to makeup, especially with color, sometimes I just feel super uncomfortable trying to create looks because I just am not a makeup artist. I just don't have the vision of some of these like amazing colorful looks. I still don't feel that intimidated reaching into this, and I don't have an issue creating looks out of this palette. So I think if you're looking for like, if you mostly like neutrals but you want to have like one rainbow palette in your collection or one colorful palette in your collection, I think that this is a really nice option because it is only $27 and you have the sleek at 9 pans. These pans still last a really long time. I don't know if I've hit pan in any of my Huda Obsessions palettes, and I take a lot of them traveling with me all the time, and they all get a ton of use out of them. So I think that these are just a really great value and just so easy to travel with as well, just being so small. I absolutely cannot say enough good things about the Huda Obsessions palettes, but the Electric Obsessions would be number 9 out of 11 in my ranking video. Next up, number 8 is going to be this neon palette, and honestly this is kind of neck and neck with the Electric Obsessions as well. I just feel like I have an easier time creating looks, or I'm a little bit more comfortable creating looks out of this palette. It's just a little bit more cohesive in my mind. Granted, you probably are left with maybe less options for looks, if you will, because with, I don't know, all those colors, maybe you can create more of a variety of looks, but I really was surprised by this palette. So if I didn't say it's the neon orange, I'm really glad I decided to pick up the orange. I almost picked up all 3, but I am on a low buy this year, and I told myself, no, you only need 1, and I went with the orange, and I'm really happy I did because I feel like of the reviews that I've heard, the orange seems to be the one that people liked the most. I had a ton of fun playing around with this summer. I was pretty intimidated to play with neons at first, but you can create some super fun looks that you can actually like make work if you kind of like accessorize it with the right clothing, or if you're just having fun in the summer. I mean, who really cares? Like, makeup, you need to make your own, like, and as long as you're digging yourself, like you think you look fly, then who cares what anyone else thinks. But at first I will say, before I realized these were more of like a chunky glitter, I was a little bit disappointed and let down by the 3 glitter shades, but I did find a way to make them work, and I really liked the way that I made them work. I really love this like electric green glitter. It's just beautiful, and I was really impressed by this. I'm really happy that I picked this up. I don't think I would pick up any of the other neon palettes just because it's not the most wearable for me, especially living in Minnesota. We are very limited by our warm months here, and I don't see myself really creating looks out of this in the winter unless I were to go on like a tropical vacation. But I am really glad to own one of the neon palettes, and I think that this one is really nice if you were looking at possibly picking one up. Oh, one more thing I forgot to mention, the newer palettes that Huda is releasing has a much nicer packaging in my opinion. It's hard plastic as opposed to like the hard cardboard, and it actually clasps shut as opposed to being like the magnetized shut, which I really appreciate. But these do cost $2 more, so this is $29 as opposed to our original palettes, which were $27. That personally doesn't bother me, and again, I personally prefer the hard plastic packaging, but I definitely wanted to make a note of that. Coming in at number 8 is going to be my Huda Coral Obsessions. Now, I really like this palette for the summer and springtime, but I feel like a lot of the looks that I create out of this palette end up looking the same. And while I do like coral looks, it's just not a look that I'm going for every day. So I mean, you can see, I hope you can see, I've gotten a ton of use out of just about every shade in this palette. Yep, I've used every shade in this palette. This middle row I've probably gotten the most use out of, but I still have used this palette a lot. I've taken this traveling with me quite a bit when I've gone to like warmer climates. I brought this to Nashville with me this summer. I brought this to Texas with me last summer, so I do use this quite a bit in the summer, but I do think you're just a little bit limited, and corals aren't my favorite eyeshadows. Like, I just prefer more neutrals, or like, I don't know, the coral is just like aren't my go-to when it comes to makeup, but I'm still really happy to have this in my collection. I still think that this has a place in my collection. If you really like coral eyeshadows, or if you like the tones in this palette, I think that the quality is just the same as it is with all of her original 6 Obsessions palettes, and I would recommend this one. It's just one that I am only reaching for like specific seasons of the year, so it's not like an all year round wearable palette. I could get away with it, but it's just for me and my preferences. I typically am only wearing this probably like 5 to 6 months of the year, as opposed to some of my other palettes I get use out of year round. Okay, the top 7 are going to be really tough for me because truthfully I really love my entire Huda Beauty collection with the exception of the Emerald palette. So these next ones are so tough. I think number 7 is going to have to go to my Huda Mauve Obsessions, which may have been my number 1 or number 2 last time I ranked these, but because of the release of these new nude palettes, which kind of lean more to the mauve side of things, I would rank this one below these, and so this is going to be my number 7. This is what my Mauve Obsessions looks like. I think that this palette is beautiful, especially for the fall time. I get quite a bit of use out of it. I like this palette, and I feel like I used to like it a lot more. Now it's just the tones are a little bit muted and just a little bit dull. I don't like the word dull, but a little bit dull in my opinion, especially comparing them to some of the other Huda palettes. So I know that this one used to be a favorite. I also feel like my preferences have changed just a little bit, where I used to be more into tones like this, and now I still like mauve tones, but I prefer some of the mauve tones that you'll see in the nude palettes. So I'm going to actually have to rank this one at number 7. Now, if you like this color story, I still think it's a great palette. I do really like the shimmers in here, and I think it's still a really well curated palette, very easy to use, but I will have to put this at number 7 in my rankings. Number 6, I'm going to have to give to the Nude Rich palette by Huda Beauty. I recently picked this up. Again, this one has the harder plastic packaging, and it has this like snake skin or like gator skin appearance on the outside, which I absolutely love. I think that this is a beautiful palette. I love that with this collection she released palettes in like a light, medium, and rich. I'm light as light can be. Wasn't that interested in the light palette, but I did pick up the rich and the medium, and I really like the rich. The only reason I'm ranking this lower at number 6, I believe, is because with this one, this is usually going to create a more bold eye. I can't go as light or as soft with this one, just because obviously this is the rich palette and the eyeshadows are a little bit darker against my fair skin, but I still love this palette. I think it is beautiful. This red shimmer shade gives me all the feels. I think it is stunning. I really love all the mattes in here. I think the only shimmer I have not used is this one right here, but other than that, I've been blown away by the shimmers as well. If I truly only could have the Huda Obsessions palettes in my collection, I really don't even know how mad I would be. They're just so easy to store because they're so little. There's just so many good things about these palettes. Highly recommend this one, especially if you have medium to deep skin and you've been wanting to try a Huda palette, but maybe you don't think there's one that's going to work for your skin tone. I think that this is super nice. One thing I will say is for like a nude color story, I feel like both this and the medium tone kind of lean more like mauve and pink, but I don't necessarily mind that, and I've still created some really beautiful looks that I have loved out of this palette. So this is one that I highly recommend, but this would be ranking at number 6. Coming in at number 4, this was either my 1 or 2 last year. This is the Huda Beauty Warm Brown Obsessions, and I still really do love this palette, you guys. I've gotten a ton of use out of this one. The reason I'm ranking this here is because I have plenty of other palettes throughout my collection that I can reach into for like a warm brown look. Now, I still love bringing this one traveling with me as my warm brown eyeshadow palette, but the ones that I'm ranking above this, I just truly have special places in my heart for them, and I don't have palettes as dupable in my collection, whereas this, I feel like I have other palettes that are more dupable. And I'm not to say that I'm over like the warm brown vibe, but like I really do like to experiment with like cool tones and mauves and like lighter pinks, and just kind of step outside what I have been doing for many years, which is just like neutral to warm brown looks. So I still really do like this palette, but I just definitely have more from Huda in my collection right now that I prefer over this palette, which is why I would be ranking this at number 4. Now, if you love warm browns, I think that this is a beautiful palette. I think they did an amazing job selecting a unique color story, in my opinion. I think a lot of warm browns are missing like this sort of pinky shade and then this like super vibrant, fiery, deeper red shade I also just really can appreciate. I don't feel like I have a shade quite like this in my collection, and then I think they really did select a good like grouping of warmer brown shades. So I still think that this is a great palette, but I would have to rank this currently at number 4 as far as my favorites from Huda Beauty currently in my collection. Coming in at number 3 is very new to my collection. It is my only large palette from Huda Beauty, and this is the Mercury Retrograde palette. And while this is probably my like least everyday wearable, maybe with the exception of the Emerald Obsession as well as the Neon, this is just such a unique and stunning color story. And what I love about this is it's almost like a wearable, colorful palette. Like you have these beautiful pops of color within the shimmers, but then the mattes, if you can see, are mostly like really light neutral matte shades, some of them almost pastel, and very easy to work with. You have just like a warm brown transition, but still like on the lighter side. You also have a nice cooler toned neutral transition shade, this shade right here, which could be like an all over lid setting shade or like a shade that could easily help you blend shades together. You have this Libra shade, which is a nice beautiful almost like light lavender shade. You also have this beautiful mauve tone shade in Off Balance, and then you have some shades here at the bottom to kind of deepen stuff up with. But I just love this palette. I think that this is very unique in my opinion. I'm sure that there are dupe videos out there. I'm sure there's people out there who have found dupes to this, but for me, I just haven't found something quite like this. I also just love the packaging. I've mentioned this before when I've talked about this palette, but Mercury Retrograde just like speaks to my soul. Especially this year, I've been getting a lot more into like astrology and signs and things like that, and I have lived by the motto always, but specifically this year, I swear I've like created a tagline for myself that like my life is just always in chaos, and I would prefer it to be in chaos over like being just like a yawn. So Mercury Retrograde is just known for like a more chaotic time, so I just feel like my life is always in Mercury Retrograde, and I feel like this palette was just like made for me. So this definitely has a special place in my heart. I know that this is a pricey palette, but I absolutely love it. I think that Huda killed it in curating a beautiful palette, so props to her, congrats to her, and I just absolutely love this palette. Couldn't recommend it enough. Again, I know it is expensive, but if you're looking to splurge or if you're looking like for a good Christmas gift idea, I would definitely recommend this one from Huda Beauty. Coming in at number 2 is another new one to my collection. It is the Huda Nude Medium palette, and I love this one, you guys. I've been reaching for this quite a bit for work, and what I love about this one is it's just a little bit more lighter and a little bit more easy to work with when I'm trying to create looks that I can wear to work that are a little bit softer, not as bold, not as intense. I think that the shimmers within this palette are beautiful. Again, I feel like you kind of have like a little bit of a pinky, more mauve tone vibe rather than like a totally nude vibe, but I still think it's a really beautiful palette. I know I will be traveling with this one in the future. Again, love the packaging on this, and I think that Huda again knocked it out of the park with this line in particular, so highly recommend this one again from Huda, and this would be my number 2. So if you know about my Huda collection, or if you followed my channel at all this year, you probably can guess what my number 1 is going to be. I feel like between this palette and the First Aid Beauty primers, I feel like I've sounded like a broken record on my channel this year, but the Huda Beauty Smokey Obsessions palette, you guys, I just love this palette. I didn't realize how much I loved this palette until I took this to Vegas with me, and it was all I wanted to reach for. I look back at the pictures from Vegas that I took, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like I freaking killed it with my makeup there, and instantly I just like truly fell in love with this palette. And it's crazy because I almost didn't purchase this palette just because I'm not usually doing like super bold smoky eyes, and I feel like anytime I see like a black and a silver in a palette, I'm instantly like, oh, that's not for me. Like, I don't do looks like that. But I have loved this. In fact, I used this palette with a combination of a couple other palettes to create the look that I have today. I'm not gonna lie, like, I'm kind of digging my eye look today. I hope that it translates well on camera, but I have been so much fun. But I've had so much fun using this palette to like create looks with other like shimmery colors in my makeup collection, more like cool toned shimmers. I just love this palette. If I could recommend any palette from Huda Beauty, this would definitely be the first one I would recommend going out to buy, especially if you like cooler tones. Now, if you like warmer tones, I would probably recommend the Warm Brown Obsessions or any of the new Nude palettes out of her line. But if you like a cool smoky toned look, this Smokey Obsessions palette is absolutely stunning. Highly recommend. I would be very curious to see where I ranked this one last year, but this is by far my favorite basically since May of this year. This is probably a top 10 palette in my collection, maybe top 5. I love it. But those are my 11 Huda Beauty palettes ranked from worst to best, or least favorite to favorite. You guys will have to leave me a comment down below and let me know what Huda Beauty palettes you currently own in your collection. What are some of your favorites, or what are some that you would like to try? I would love to hear from you guys. Other than that, thank you so much for sticking around to watch today's video, and I will catch you in tomorrow's finale. I think that I plan to post this as my day 6. So yes, finale for palette week. I'm really excited about tomorrow's video. It is the kind of the video that like kicked off my idea to want to do another palette week. So stay tuned for that. If you want a spoiler alert, it's my 31 palettes a day. No, 1 palette a day for 31 days. So I have 31 different eyeshadow palettes to share with you guys with 31 different looks that I've been focused on for the last 31 or so days. I kind of cheated and started a little bit early because I wanted to do more bold looks that I have in my past, like a palette a day videos. So I'm really excited for that video. I hope that you guys are too, and I hope you'll tune in tomorrow to catch it. Other than that, thank you so much for sticking around to watch today's video, and I'll catch you in tomorrow's. Bye.